The moment the champagne bottle exploded and sprayed across the breakroom TV, I knew they weren't going to pay me. Not in cash, not in credit, not even in basic decency. The system I'd built, line by line, sleepless night after sleepless night, had just hit 400% above projected traffic. Real-time metrics danced across the screen like fireworks. API uptime perfect. Dashboards responsive. Reports between departments running smooth like a Tesla coil humming. The product was alive. Efficient. Stable. That wasn't luck. That was me. People clapped. Marketing posted selfies. Sales handed out the cheap foil balloons with #GOAT stamped on them. I stood to the side, sipping lukewarm LaCroix, watching my own work being treated like a party trick. Not mad. Not yet. Just tired. Then Don strolled in, $9 haircut, permanent smirk, and patted me on the shoulder like a dog greeting guests. "Hey, quick thing," he said, like it was nothing. "Your bonus isn't going through the cycle. Policy stuff. You get it." I blinked. "Policy," he added, already walking away. "Upper levels are cracking down on post-launch bonuses. Not personal. Not personal. Like my weekend's babysitting database failures weren't personal. Like line 13.2, subsection D of our licensing contract, third-party retention condition, wasn't personal. Like the blood in my coffee wasn't personal." I didn't yell. Didn't flip the printer off its tray. Just nodded once. Got it. What I really got. They thought I was replaceable. The woman who rebuilt their entire data stack from a contractor's half-finished disaster? Just a cost to contain. A policy exception. They assumed I wouldn't notice. That I'd keep showing up, smiling, like a cog in the machine I built. I walked back to my desk. The noise of the room dimmed, reality trouble turned down. My inbox full of congrats, requests, metrics, charts, proof the system worked. I delivered everything, smooth, fast. But something clicked inside me, not rage, not revenge yet. Just calm clarity. They were now using a system whose legal operation depended on one contract line that only I had read. One line with one condition, my employment. When Don walked away like I was lucky to have a badge, he wasn't just skipping a bonus. He was stepping on a grenade I had buried in their platform's foundation. All I had to do was wait. Let gravity do the rest. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't run to HR or legal. I opened my encrypted folder, found the PDF, highlighted the clause, and stared at it. I remembered every meeting with the vendor, every fight to include that line. I wasn't even supposed to be negotiating. Don had failed. I'd stepped in, spent 2 weeks on red lines and vendor counsel, just to protect myself. Just in case. Then I went back to work, sent reports, answered technical questions, scheduled Monday syncs. Smiled at the intern, laughed at a joke I didn't hear. Then opened a fresh email, subject line, FYI, potential issue. Monday morning smelled of stale donuts and denial. Confetti still vacuumed out of the hallway. Email blast started, incredible teamwork, historic launch, all full of senior leadership patting themselves on the back for my work. The official postmortem dropped at 10:06 a.m., PDF full of charts I designed, metrics I pulled, a technical summary written in third person as if it were discovered, not engineered over 2 years. And nowhere, not once, was my name. Dawn. Product lead. VP of Ops. Dawn. Me? Reduced to a bullet point. Invisible. No passive-aggressive emoji. No complaints. Just opened a new folder, insurance. Started dragging copies, Slack threads, design drafts, version histories, architecture diagrams, all time-stamped, all prepared. A war doesn't start with a cannon blast. It starts quietly, sharpening knives. By noon, murmurs started. DevOps guy asked if legal had cleared the final vendor clauses. Appendix D has some weird stuff, he said, sipping a mug. Project manager shrugged. Legal probably skimmed it. Nothing's come up. I smiled faintly, like a magician whose rabbit just started chewing through his sleeve. Lunch at 1:45. Break room cleared. Leftover sheet cake, frosting crusted like spackle, success written by a toddler's hand. Appropriate. I sat by the window, watching. HR walked by laughing. Product talking Q4 goals like nothing happened. Dawn strutted by, talking about centralizing insights. Didn't see me. Wasn't supposed to exist outside the code. That afternoon, I pulled the license again. Every page. Every signature. Every timestamp. I knew how it would play out if I needed to drop it. Not just contract chaos, but system-wide blackout. Investors would panic. Compliance teams would call it non-recoverable exposure. I didn't need to act yet. Just wait. Let the silence stretch. Let Dawn forget what he skimmed. Let leadership polish boots on my back a little longer. Let the rope tighten. Left at 6, like any other day. But I carried a hard drive in my bag, encrypted, time-stamped, full backup of infrastructure dependencies. When the system fails, they'll need a miracle. I won't be there to give it. License in a folder no one remembered, even procurement. Boring name. AK_34_license_final_executed_v7.pdf. Been there since I signed it, tucked away like a loaded gun. But I remembered. Every line. Wednesday. Everyone buzzing from the launch. Han already calling the system our baby like he'd fathered it through 5 Slack approvals. Roadmap forming on the platform I built. And they still hadn't paid me. I opened the file. Appendix D, subsection 3, paragraph B. Single sentence. One legal needle in a haystack. If the designated technical lead, me, is removed from compensated employment status for more than 72 hours, this license agreement shall be null and void. All access terminated immediately. No gray area. Pure black and white kill switch. That clause wasn't an accident. Born of spite. 2 years ago, Don and his friends tried outsourcing the rebuild to a contractor in Austin who bragged about 10x engineering and thought documentation was optional. They tried cutting me out, calling me too protective, too opinionated, cost inefficient. I caught the slack. I made the vendor put my name in the contract. If they wanted to use their software, I had to be paid. Employed. Compensated. I wanted to make certain they could never quietly pretend I'd never existed. I minimized the window, took a long swallow of coffee, and opened Outlook. 4 lines. No theatrics. Subject, FYI, potential issue. Hi Rebecca, looping you in on the analytics license, specifically Appendix D. There may be compliance implications if current compensation structure isn't aligned. Attaching for your review. I attached the original contract, PDF, timestamped signature, and clicked send. No explosion. No sirens. Just a small paper airplane icon that quietly changed the entire battlefield. From that moment forward, it wasn't about hurt feelings or fairness. It was about law, governance, and how quickly a company can collapse when the one person who actually read the fine print stops shielding them from their own negligence. I didn't watch for the read receipt. I didn't refresh. I simply leaned back, stretched, and listened to the low hum of the servers my code still quietly fed. They could keep acting like I was irrelevant. But every breath the system took was now technically unlawful, and I was the only one who could bring it back to life. The first sign was silence, not empty silence, but deliberate, surgical silence. The kind that spreads in careful pockets. Thursday dawned with a polite, scalpel-sharp email from Rebecca, lead counsel. She CC'd me. Following up on Appendix D. Just want to confirm current compensation alignment to ensure license compliance. Don didn't reply. Not after the first message. Not after the second. His Slack status flickered between green active and in a meeting for 6 straight hours. Then I was quietly removed from the DataOps Slack channel. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. 1 second I was mid-thread about new endpoints. The next I was staring at you no longer have access to this workspace. The morning stand-up invite vanished from my calendar too. I only noticed when a Zoom screen share notification blinked in, then disappeared like smoke. They were freezing me out. Don probably thought he was being clever, contain the blast radius, limit exposure, restructure without the inconvenience of confrontation. He thought if he starved me of access, I'd fade away quietly like everyone else. Instead, I opened a fresh spreadsheet and titled it, Critical Dependencies, Analytics version 3.6. I listed everything. Daily sales dashboards powered by my pipeline. Customer churn reports for the board. Python scripts that ran real-time ops monitoring. CFGA streams feeding forecasting models for the CFO's quarterly calls. Warehouse transformations scheduled with cron jobs I wrote during a February blizzard while Dawn worked from home on spotty Wi-Fi. By lunch, 43 systems. By end of day, 68. By midnight, 92. Each entry had a short description, timestamp, owner, and failure condition. Final column, breakpoint without license. Most would collapse within 72 hours of vendor audit. Dawn's gamble wasn't arrogant. It was suicidal. Friday morning, I exported backup logs, saved dependency maps, and encrypted the entire folder to an offline drive. Not for revenge. For evidence. If they came crawling, I wanted the power to refuse. If they came swinging, I wanted to end them in 3 clicks. The meeting wasn't on any calendar. No subject, no prep doc, no Slack ping, just quiet shoulder taps from legal. Rebecca pulled a handful of people into conference room C like she was convening a jury. Inside, Dawn, red-faced and restless. HR rep chewing gum like it was a pep rally. A finance analyst who looked like he'd rather be on Mars. Rebecca at the head of the table, laptop open, fingers steepled. I wasn't invited. Didn't need to be. Rebecca had been digging, the kind of meticulous, sleep-deprived digging only good lawyers do. She'd actually read the contract. Understood what Dawn hadn't. She began calmly. I want to verify something. Is Claire currently being compensated in accordance with her employment agreement? HR answered like it was a soft pitch. Yes, of course. She's active. Hasn't been terminated. Rebecca didn't blink. That wasn't the question. Has she been paid? Finance flipped pages, frowning. Her Q2 performance bonus is still under review. I don't see disbursement yet. Dawn jumped in too quickly. We're still evaluating performance metrics tied to the rollout. The team did great, obviously, but there's some policy-level stuff around post-launch incentive triggers. Rebecca raised one hand. Slow. Surgical. Then she closed the laptop. Not slammed. Just final. Like lowering a coffin lid. If she's unpaid, we're in breach. HR blinked. Of what? Rebecca pointed at the closed laptop. Clause 13.2, subsection D. The license agreement that grants us legal access to 97% of our analytics infrastructure. The clause that requires Claire to be in compensated employment status for that license to remain valid. Dawn tried to laugh. That's just boilerplate. No, Rebecca said, voice so soft it chilled the air. It's not. The room went still. She leaned forward. If this isn't fixed, we're out of compliance. Which means our access is illegal. Which means every dashboard, every report, every investor call using that data is exposure. She turned to Dawn. You need to explain why you failed to process a compensation clause that contains operational kill-switch language. Dawn looked like a man realizing his parachute was actually a gym bag. I didn't know, he mumbled. You were in the loop, Rebecca said. You signed the disbursement delay form. You authorized the review freeze. The finance analyst cleared his throat. We thought it was standard. It's not standard, Rebecca said. It's negligence. Silence stretched, thick and final. Rebecca stood. I'm escalating to the CEO. If she isn't paid by end of day, we will be in breach. Disclosure to the vendor and investors will proceed. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. And if you think she's bluffing, she said without turning, you should read the rest of the contract. She wrote most of it. The fire had landed. They just hadn't felt the burn through the floor yet. It began at 3:12 a.m. The automated global sales reconciliation report never arrived in the CFO's inbox. No bounce, no error, just absence. By 3:34 an East Coast intern pinged in innocent panic. Hey, are the dashboards down or am I just dumb? By 4 o'clock the DevOps chat was war. No one could reach the analytics cluster. Container logs were clean. No deploys overnight. But the vendor API keys were returning 4003s. Then the system itself spoke. Every executive dashboard, board metric, investor KPI, churn heat map, and customer lifetime value projection refreshed with the same crimson banner, license unrecognized. Contact account holder. That was Appendix D. That was the clause flipping them off because they hadn't paid me. By 6:45, Don's voicemail was full. So was his inbox. So was whatever remained of his composure. People hovered near his door like they were watching a house burn. I watched from the break room, feet up, sipping scorched office coffee from a chipped mug that read "Data never sleeps." Ironic. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't even smiling. I simply existed calm, present, a ghost in the machine they thought they could unplug. By 7:30, it had reached legal. By 8:02, Rebecca stood outside the CEO's office, black binder in hand, speaking low and fast. By 8:15, the emergency meeting was called. In person only. Subject line, one word. Urgent. I wasn't invited. Didn't matter. My name was already in the room. Don tried to spin it. Of course he did. Technical hiccup. Vendor handshake misfire. Rebecca slid the contract across the table. Clause 13.2, subsection D, termination upon non-compensated status of the designated technical lead. The CEO asked, quiet, is this real? Rebecca nodded once. Is she still on payroll? Finance shook their heads. Don opened his mouth. Got waved off. I was still in the break room, still sipping, watching a marketer sob quietly into a granola bar. Second alert hit the screens, pipeline suspended due to license breach. You could feel the panic tear through the walls. This wasn't a bug. This was compliance. This was exposure. They could fire me. They just couldn't run the company afterward. I opened my laptop, refreshed, watched their world freeze in real time. Then I finished my coffee. It tasted better than usual. The room was packed, but no one breathed. Not when Rebecca opened the black binder. Not when she clicked her pen with that sharp, warning snap. Not even when she read the clause aloud like a sentence being passed. Appendix D, Clause 13.2, subsection D, she said, scanning the page but aiming her voice straight at Don. Termination upon the unpaid status of the designated technical lead. No projector. No slides. Just paper and 5 executives realizing they'd stepped on a landmine. Rebecca looked up, calm as a storm already spent. Please tell me you paid her. Don, she's employed. Active status. Hasn't been terminated. That's not what I asked, Rebecca said, colder than laminate flooring. Was she paid? Long pause. Then, from the junior finance analyst in the corner, her Q2 bonus was withheld. Still under internal review. Rebecca closed the binder with precision, flipped it open to a highlighted page, then said, steady. You'd better call your investors. Silence exploded. The CFO paled. The VP of sales rubbed his temples like he could massage away consequences. The CEO stared at the paper like it might self-destruct. Don tried to laugh. Come on, this is just exaggerated legalese. These clauses are rarely enforced. Enforceable, Rebecca said. The vendor confirmed it. I spoke with their compliance lead this morning. They cross-referenced her employment status with their access logs. If she's unpaid, we are operating without a license. There's gotta be a grace period. There isn't. She flipped to another page. 72 hours. That window closed last night at 11:43 p.m. Another silence, darker this time. Rebecca stood, adjusted her blazer, looked at the CEO, not Don. I strongly recommend immediate retroactive compensation and preparation of a disclosure for the board and investors. The breach affects not just operations, but every downstream report built from that pipeline. The CEO exhaled hard through his nose. Is there a fix? Rebecca didn't answer immediately. She just looked at him. You had one, she said. You decided her bonus wasn't worth the policy exception. Don was sweating now, hand trembling as he reached for water. I didn't know, he muttered. No one told me the clause was real. You signed the contract, Rebecca said, already turning toward the door. And she flagged it in writing. Twice. She paused at the threshold. I'll draft the disclosure. Let me know if you want me to include your names. Then she walked out. No gavel. No smoke. Just reality settling like ash. Inside the room, no one moved. Outside, the platform stayed dead. Dashboards blank. Numbers gone. Truth undeniable. And me? I was down the hall, leaning against the vending machine, watching the power bleed out of people who once thought I didn't matter. No gloating. No smirk. Just silence. Let them feel it. By noon the building had the hush of a wake. Phones rang. Nobody answered. Slack channels were graveyards of unanswered questions. The CEO's assistant power-walked past my desk 3 times in 15 minutes, clutching a laptop and muttering oh God, like a mantra. The implosion was in full swing. Investor dashboards inaccessible. Customer churn analytics gone. Forecasting reports pulling data so stale it still referenced a discontinued product line. People rebooted routers like it would resurrect the system. Marketing blamed IT. IT blamed the vendor. The vendor replied with one brutal line, "Your license is invalid due to breach. Please contact your designated account lead for reinstatement." The account lead was me. Around 12:40 p.m. A junior HR staffer, Tyler, fear in his eyes, deodorant stains down both sleeves, approached holding a printed form like it was radioactive. "Hey, Dawn was wondering if maybe you could help us draft some transition documentation?" I looked up. Blinked once. "You mean documentation for a system I can't legally access anymore?" Tyler flushed. "Well, yeah, but just so the team can keep things moving." I took a slow sip of tea. "Tell Dawn I'm not available. And next time, don't send someone who doesn't understand what the word breach means." He nodded too quickly and fled. I returned to my terminal and quietly revoked my personal credentials from every sandbox instance. Not out of malice. Out of closure. Meanwhile, HR tried to backdate a bonus payment. Timestamp, 11:04 a.m., hours after the clause deadline. Labeled, manual adjustment, discretionary. Rebecca wasn't having it. She sent a company-wide email to leadership, short, brutal, airtight. Retroactive compensation does not resolve breach status per contract clause 13.2d. Timestamped payment logs confirm violation. The platform remains unlicensed. Disclosure to vendor and investors will proceed. Black and white. No spin. And still Don tried to blame internal miscommunication. I overheard him in the hallway later, telling finance that maybe I could have just come to him directly instead of escalating through legal, like I hadn't. Twice. Like I hadn't sent the original FYI email. The stupidity wasn't surprising. What shocked me was how committed they were to it. They had a flaming meteor headed for their quarterly report, and their plan was to hand me a Word template and hope I'd play nice. I wasn't playing anymore. I wasn't even on the field. At 2 p.m., I walked past the conference room. Inside, panic. For people on a call, one crying, one pacing. Dawn gesturing wildly at a spreadsheet full of #REF. Errors. I didn't slow. Didn't look in. Just smiled faintly at the vending machine as I passed. Twix was out. Still more reliable than their leadership. The call came at 6:42 p.m. I was pouring wine and feeding the cat when my phone lit up with a direct dial number, no assistant buffer, no caller ID mask. That meant one thing. I answered with a single word, yes. A long pause. Breath catching. Then, gravel and desperation. What will it take? No greeting. No preamble. Just the CEO himself. I walked to my desk, sat, and opened the folder labeled "They're going to beg." Inside, a PDF drafted by my attorney 2 weeks earlier, titled Reinstatement and Buyout Proposal, executed upon license breach. 3 bullet points. Immediate wire transfer of unpaid compensation plus 40% breach penalty buyout of license clause for mid-6 figures, executed through outside counsel written statement acknowledging contribution. To be read at the next company-wide all hands. I clicked forward. Subject, your offer window. 24 hours. I heard him open the attachment. Felt the moment the number hit. 10 seconds of silence. Then, quiet, almost reverent. We should have just paid you the damn bonus. I didn't say I told you so. Didn't laugh. Didn't celebrate. I simply said, you have until close of business tomorrow. After that, the vendor gets the breach escalation. Click. No goodbye. No drama. I sat back, took a sip of wine, and watched for the wire confirmation. The dashboard stayed dark all night. The board didn't get their Q3 burn rate report. Investors kept refreshing pages that now read, Error 4002, license authorization required. And me? I watered my plants, watched the sunset, felt the weight of beautiful, golden silence, the silence of a system finally speaking for me louder than any speech ever could. They didn't just break a contract. They proved I was the only one holding the place together. And now they were paying for it on my terms. Thanks for joining the ride, you beautiful office survivors. Subscribe for more quiet switch-flicking chaos. Let's make your former coworker sweat.